Imagine, God forbid, that you're in a car accident and you show up to the hospital and they say, I'm sorry, we have no electricity or water. Imagine how crippling that would be for a hospital here in the United States. Now imagine you're in the Gambia and you have no lights, you have no incubator, you have no oxygen machine, all of these things that center around electricity. And there are newborn babies that didn't survive because they couldn't plug in the machine. And you just sit there and you're like, okay, there's the machine, there's the baby. With electricity, this would happen. And then instead you just sit there and watch helplessly. When I first arrived at the hospital, I was in the back of this pickup truck with my fellow volunteers. It was like 100 some odd degrees, and it's this huge place. Like it has the capacity to hold like 200 beds. And I mean, I expected it to be a hospital, like a clinic, like you see on the news, like jam-packed with people. And it wasn't. It's this huge place. And I said, well, they don't really need me. Like I probably could go somewhere else where I could be a little bit more helpful. But I quickly realized that I could be extremely helpful there. It's this hospital, because it didn't have full-time electricity and running water, it really didn't have the ability to serve the patients there. When I first arrived at the hospital, they had a few generators, but these generators were either broken or out of fuel. So they couldn't afford, when they did have fuel, to run the generators more than 8 hours a day. So this meant that there wasn't refrigeration, which means their blood bank and there was just non-existent. And also all the vaccines. You think of all of the organizations that have donated vaccines to remote areas of Africa, and then they get there and they're not kept cold. And those vaccines are just given to patients. I mean, you don't throw them out, but who knows if they're still viable. One evening, I was walking by the maternity ward, and I went to check up on this baby that was born about 2 days earlier. The baby was born, she was a little girl, and she was born at 3.5 pounds. Now, she was not premature, but just over that mark, so should have been healthy, just very light, because her mom was malnourished. And the problem with her was she was just having trouble breathing, like her lungs just weren't strong enough. And because they did not have the electricity to run the incubator and the oxygen machine, she died 2 days later after struggling to breathe. And it was, standing there and watching this baby die, knowing that had there been electricity, this wouldn't be an issue at all, and knowing if she was back in the United States, this wouldn't be an issue. Your hands are just strapped. There's nothing you can do. And you sit at work and you watch people suffer because you can't provide these basic services. The CEO is Kebba Badgie, and he's a very innovative guy. He studied in Finland and he really thinks outside of the box. And I said to him, actually, what can I do to help when we go back to the United States? Like I was expecting, collect Band-Aids, maybe talk to some companies about bringing over some vaccines and thinking that would be ambitious. And he said, oh, I'm glad you asked. Like I would like you to raise the money for solar panels for this hospital. And he goes, well, this is what we really need. And then he just pulls out a quote from the local solar panel company saying, it would cost $300,000 to do this. I mean, after hearing and seeing the things that I saw at the hospital, and with that passion coupled with all the supportive people in my hometown, it was like, okay, we're gonna do this. So our mission as Power Up Gambia is to provide sustainable and reliable electricity to clinics through solar panels so that we're giving the local people the ability to save lives in their community.